Welcome to the Parody, where we tally up the victims of our favorite movies. I'm Chelsea Rose, and today we're looking at Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, released in 2025. Beyond is a sequel to Mr. Apple's previous Poseidon movie. No, not Legacy, which I probably won't be covering for a while. It follows upon that one by featuring a rescue team going in after a group of survivors to get them out of that thing. The entire thing basically takes place on the ship, and is probably the most contained of Mr. Apple's quote-unquote ship trilogy. Sadly, I think this is probably the weakest of those four films. It's not the fault of anything here being all that bad, it's just that we've seen all this before. It stings even more because it comes after Wilhelm Gustloff, which is probably my favorite Mr. Apple movie. The characters had a goal that was more than getting off a ship because of an accident. The scope was vast and wide, selling that they wanted to get away from the danger of World War II in any way they could. It just so happened that the escape method was a ship. Here, a vast majority of the runtime is spent on the ship, and a majority of that is on action set pieces that almost always end with a character dying to progress the plot along. Scouring the movie, there isn't much to a lot of these guys except for the profession that we get when we see their names, and for most of them, that's it. Now, let me be clear, even if it seems like I'm ragging on this film right now, it's definitely not the worst thing I've ever seen. Hell, it's not even, bad. The animation is solid for a Roblox movie, and its direction keeps on improving more and more. However, I think the writing has kind of taken a step back, whilst everything else keeps on inching forwards. There's not even a few funny things outside of kills I remember from this one. I'm sad that this supposed ship quadrilogy ended on a whimper, because if there was a bit more character development added, it could have made up for the repetitiveness of the set pieces. Since Beyond ended up being his final ship movie, I hope his next film goes in another direction that he can improve on. I did say some of the kills were funny though, so let's see how many transcend beyond the parody adventure. The movie begins on the Poseidon where we immediately meet Rona the passenger. That's a key sign that she'll survive. She's trying to find the galley, but a bunch of these guys are too busy roasting a non-existent singer. One guy actually provides a bit of help and she goes on her merry way. On her way there, she meets film director Sebastian, who's got somewhere to be. That somewhere else ends up being a place in the film's surviving cast as a wave comes on the ship. You get the joke by now, it's yet another shipwreck sequence. During it, I can count 40 kills, even if there's probably a lot of double counting. I'll assume they include a few people that are near Sebastian and those guys that were roasting that non-existent singer. Damn, these boat disasters just get to a point, you know? There is an alternate version of this scene that lasts 11 seconds, although that one looks like shit. We glide over the ocean in credits until we get beyond the title card. A ship called the Jenny is traveling through an exposition dubbed to rescue the still alive passengers of the Poseidon. Since the movie decides to let us know who everyone is, let's meet them. First is Captain Reggie, who seems like he just got done shooting a Nintendo Direct. It's the Poseidon adventure that you know and love, featuring DreamWorks Animation's Shrek characters. His lackeys, or the search and rescue team, consists of Jose, Fraser, Milo, and Freddy Fazbear, who all look nearly identical. Good thing I can almost tell them apart due to their color-coded text. Freddy shades in his character a little, since he's a bit nervous about the operation, considering that he's a beginner to this whole life-saving thing. However, lives have to be saved, so he joins the crew as they plan out their entrance. They have a few options, either to stern or underwater, but there's concerns about both, you know, because of the whole diving thing and this huge storm. They sternly coast on the stern idea, even when they go over to Reggie getting his body ready. The ship rocks over the waves hard, and they eventually capsize the ship, leaving the entire crew in the one place that one guy never wanted to be. They do eventually surface and swim over to the bottom of the ship. They make their entrance and come to the realization that their way to the survivors kinda looks like the ending to Poseidon Legacy. I bet Desmond the Earth drummer is hanging out just below screen. Some of them try to note that, but that's not what Milo came out here to do. Then a minute and a half later, we're still in the same exact scene where not much has happened and basically they haven't really moved at all. All five of them finally move on to a different section of the same place and doubt that there are any survivors. However, this rescue team made some forward momentum in the plot. They would have found that out pretty easily. Gymnast Marion, Technician Evelyn, Passenger Steven, another passenger named Morgan, College student Lyndon, And finally, musician Francis and writer Warren. And outside of that, Rhoda and Sebastian survived. Meanwhile, the boys start climbing on this pipe's giant hole. Then they get to a crazy little ladder portion that they should've just went across in like 5 seconds flat. Because, yeah, just tweak some of the set pieces and replace those with character development, and that could actually justify the 100-minute running time. However, after that guy just did the valve thing you saw, it starts moving on its own, which shouldn't be happening. It gets incredibly gassy in there, and he tries to mess with the valve more, only for it to stop for a little bit. Everyone successfully makes it past that point except for Jose. The gas makes him go off balance and kills him as he falls down this bottomless pit. Also, that body is the one of Linda, someone from the first Poseidon movie, which I said I wouldn't be covering for a little while longer, so I'm not gonna count her. After that kill, they just ignore the fact that Jose died and get to where the survivors may be. That may actually be true because the survivors hear something before Lyndon tells them to stay put. Just like the real-life Lyndon, he's the president of this group. During all of this, Evelyn tries to get Marion to escape with her separate from the group. Everyone else completely ignores them because Lyndon has his sights set on Rhoda and Sebastian. And that's only because they're just 2 extra survivors of the disaster. However, that's when the search and rescue team meets up with them. Down the halls of the ship, they immediately discover a roadblock, a giant hole. Also, yes, I did see those charred bodies, but since I can add them when I get to just the Poseidon movie, I won't be adding them to the list. And at the bottom of that hole, it seems, pretty deadly. As Lyndon tries to make everybody kill themselves, Morgan and Warren have decided to split off. They tried to go out the same way the rescue team came in, but quickly realized that that way would be impossible. Meanwhile, the main group is trying to maneuver the ladder across the hole. As we get another slow as fuck set piece, the radio tells us that there's a violent tropical cyclone going on in the area. And sure enough, outside, it's causing houses to spontaneously combust. Even worse is that it spreads a fire on board that causes an underwater explosion. It causes a lot of things to go sideways during their escape. That includes a table that crushes Steven to death. Kinda forgot he was here for a second. However, what that explosion did do was create a nice little bit of tension with the ladder constantly shifting across the hall. Everyone gets across the hole pretty easily except for Francis, who kinda eats shit by ending up on a lower level. However, at least he's still alive. Because Ward just kinda trips on the ladder and ends up falling down to the very bottom of that hole. Also, I like how it just looks like the ladder broke his neck. Apparently, that's when it decides to cut to the National Weather Service to introduce 2 people that we'll never see again. The remaining survivors get a little rest when they find the bitchin' main party room. I don't actually know what this room is called, but like, we can just go with that. It gives Reggie the opportunity to figure out that they're just gonna have to wing a way out of there. I don't know, dude, just construct a mech suit and hope for the best.
President Barack Obama.
It also gives Reggie and Fraser to have a little character development, which is cool in a movie like this. Reggie and Fraser go to search the rest of the ship in order to find a way out. It seems like they hit a jackpot. Through a series of events, they find a chasm that has water at the bottom of it. However, if you look too far up, you're gonna have to say hi to this big industrial-sized van. Since it seems to be the most viable way out, the rest of the crew joins them. That includes Evelyn being a total dick, just pushing Marion into the water. And for some reason, Ford leads the charge. At the top of the chasm, Milo finds a door that's apparently been sealed off. Everyone follows Milo and Ford technically up the ladder, and Rona ends up being last. She decides to have her starting point go underwater for some reason and just pulls this random ass lever. I don't know why the hell she did that because it just starts up the fan underwater. For being homophobic, the fan proves to be faster than the speed of Rona and mulches her up in its blades. Nobody seems to care and is more concerned about opening that damn door. That's when another lever comes into play, but unlike the one Rona pulled, it's actually going to save them. At the forceful nature of her so-called friends, Marion goes over and performs some very impressive gymnastics to try to get the lever pulled. And through the clutches of parkour, she finally pulls the lever. Morgan has no idea what's going on up there and tries to get a better look. Instead, his ladder rung breaks and he falls all the way down to his death. With the power of both fans running at the same time, the pressure in the room mounts to an all-time high. And it's here where Ford secures like some of his only lines in the movie. With all the pressure and sparks going around, the fan begins to dislodge. Eventually, a huge mess is made in the chasm that kills both men. Reggie suffers the brunt of Bowser's fury, and Ford falls into the water before that dangling platform falls onto him. As of now, the ship is either being flooded or on fire. Francis reunites with the rest of the group before Lyndon lets everybody have a break. And really, he only needs that break just so he can actually develop his character. His insecurities leading the group stem back to when he cheated his way into college just so he can make his family proud. And I guess some of the negativity that followed seeped its way into his leadership skills.
Just never thought I'd go far enough to let people die.
It's also right around here where the rescue team has noticed half the group has been killed. However, since they've persevered past that point, there's really no going back. Sometime during all this, Sebastian had found a cargo room that may provide a key to escape. The others are told about the route that first takes them into a pool room. Like how the rest of the ship ended up, it's pretty upside down. And since this pool room wasn't in the first movie, I will count these two dead ladies we see on the ground. Oh wait, no, that's technically the roof, isn't it? The reason why Sebastian's here in the first place is because he needed inspiration for a movie he was shooting, so he just went on the ship. Little did you know that inspiration would lead to him getting crushed. Seeing his death gives Francis a good idea. By using that life ring on the ground, they can fit a person in it and get everyone up to a higher level. They throw it up, and an animation had to be cut short because the longer version looked like shit. One by one, in a kinda slow sequence, everyone makes it up. As the water fills up the pool, Freddy runs away from the rest of the group. Turns out he doesn't really care because he was never supposed to be with these guys in the first place, according to him at least. However, he quickly changes his mind when another flood enters the room. Everyone makes it out of there and up the stairs just in the nick of time. Since they're on the two lowest decks, they remember the words of the late Sebastian and remember that there's a cargo hold around here. At the start of a really nice wonder, Lyndon thanks Francis for him just still being alive in the first place. Behind them, the rescue team is worried about the impending cyclone, and Evelyn and Marion are just up for this shit. And with that, they finally enter the cargo hold, which is where we'll basically be spending the rest of the movie. Milo says they just need to find a way out, and Freddy interprets that as just himself. Well, that is after he's called a gaslighter. Even though at the beginning of the movie he was just portrayed as a nervous rescue worker, now he's kinda just gone off the deep end. To make sure nothing stupid happens, Milo goes down and intervenes, which Freddy doesn't like. In order to cover as much ground as possible to find an escape, they decide to split up. Francis and Fraser decide to go down with the other rescue workers, and the remaining 3 survivors go together. It's a whole lot of nothing for a bit until Francis is caught being with the other group. See, that's why they always say splitting up in horror movies is a dumb idea. It gets extra proven as Francis says he gets stuck inside this very narrow space. He ends up getting out of that burning orange container only to start hanging off a ton of stuff. He's able to climb his way to safety as the place he was at just gets destroyed. Oh my god. Almost ended up like Carter in Final Destination. Meanwhile, Marion's just hanging on for dear life. Kinda shockingly, Evelyn comes over to her friend's side, even though she's kinda been berating her this entire movie. Conveniently for Marion, that container falls into that fire that she definitely would have just fallen into. Both of them end up in the water, but Evelyn had a nastier fall than Marion did, so she can't really move. Marion's bewildered because she's basically always been by her side, and that's only for one reason. Evelyn called her stupid. And that's when she finally decides to take all that stuff back. At least she did so in her final moments, as Evelyn is soon crushed by one of the walkways. Lyndon soon gets to Marion, and the two of them run off. Still, this late into the movie, they don't really know where to get out from in the cargo hold. And also, where's Evelyn? Oh, Freddy already knows. Huh. However, they're trying to find something they can use to get out, and the camera pans over to a tank full of propane and propane accessories. So basically, when they find a way over there, they're gonna make the walls of the ship go boom. While Lyndon and Marion crawl under a truck and the rescue boys just do some ziplining, a group of 2 in a helicopter comes in to rescue them. Since they can't get boats out in a weather like this, they have to make a landing on the ship by themselves. However, the storm makes them lose all sorts of focus and they eventually have to call in the boats. Glad they bought that plot device off of Amazon because they just crash into the side of the ship as a result of the storm. The rescue team gets over to the container of propane and Milo decides to go in since he has nothing better to do. Lyndon catches up to the rescue team and we learn that Freddy went into the propane container with Milo, which is not exactly a good sign. He went inside to intercept Milo from getting to propane so he can save their asses? So, yep, Freddy's basically the main antagonist of the movie, even though that was not necessarily built up at all and we never really got any readings from that at the beginning. Hell, I thought it would have been Lyndon, but he just ended up being a completely normal dude. Instead, it's Frederick Fazbear, who complains about Fraser not being a good leader at all because of the amount of people that died under him. However, all of Freddy's complaining makes Milo reminisce about the good old days at Nintendo that ended in 2019. I guess Reggie's body was truly ready for whatever came at him. Since all Freddy did was complain and become a villain, Milo pushes him further into the container. That doesn't stop Freddy from trying to escape the container, however, he just falls over. Milo has enough strength to push a propane tank off the container because if he's going down, Freddy's going down with him. Milo's panicking while Freddy's being a selfish trooper up until the very end. The container falls into the fire below, causing a giant explosion and it gives everybody enough panic to get the hell out of there. And oh yeah, I also killed Milo and Freddy. Using a lit stick or whatever, Francis makes use of that tank of propane and throws the stick at it. Everyone runs away as it causes yet another giant explosion, this one putting a hole in the side of the ship. That means they can finally escape, although one last obstacle is that they're gonna have to jump into the water below. One by one, they jump off until all of them are in the water. Thankfully, one of those newfangled rescue boats was moving right by where they were, so they're able to swim to it in record time. That's not before another explosion does quite the number on the Poseidon. Although it seems hopeful for everyone else, Fraser is devastated since he basically thinks it's his fault that Milo and Freddy are dead, but more so Milo.
I'm sorry, Milo.
The very small group of survivors is sailed off to safety as the movie ends with the Poseidon sinking to the bottom of the ocean. How many people went up and beyond to make sure they were one of the casualties of the Poseidon? Let's find out and get to the numbers. 55 people died in Beyond the Poseidon adventure. The victims consisted of 27 men and 28 women, giving us the first ever Mr. Apple movie of more dead ladies than dudes. Even then, this is still the least deadly Mr. Apple movie. Come on, man. Man up to Poseidon Legacy. With a runtime of 98 minutes, that lets us kill on average every 1.78 minutes. I'll give Amethyst Flamethrower to Warren because the physics of that death are just kind of funny to me. Broken Pistol will go to the Pool Room ladies because they probably shouldn't have even have counted, but we never saw that pool room in the previous movie, so I kinda had to. And that's it. Beyond the Poseidon Adventure was released in 2025 and is Mr. Apple's latest and final ship movie. He took a little break from making movies, but he seems to be coming back with something soon. Whatever it is, I can't wait to cover on the parody. Until then, I'm Chelsea Rose, and this has been, well, the parody. Man, that's the first time I've said that inside. Thanks a lot for watching this parody. I'm sorry for not uploading anything else in September, but I kind of really didn't have the motivation to do parody stuff because I was too busy working on the script for an episode of my show Mansion Battle, you know? And now I'm kind of unmotivated to work on that script, but for kind of completely different reasons, lol. In a little bit, you're getting your next hour-long parody of the Roblox Ragdoll Show Season 3, but then after that, you're getting the parody's first game. Thanks for gaming, and thanks for watching.